Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. We're back then with issue 40 and it's time for us to paint our aspiring champion up in the colours of the Black Legion. So yeah, very basic sort of Black Legion colour scheme, starting with black, working all our metals, so our silvers and the gold trim, picking out the red details, so we've got eye lenses, weapon grips, loincloth, and there's a Blood Angel helmet on one guy, which I've already done of course. And of course we've got stuff like the wooden spikes, you've got bare exposed skin and bone, and then we've got extra details as well to pick out. So all in all, a pretty good paint guide for getting this unit tabletop ready. But before we do all our shaking of paints, don't forget to do all the usual. Like this video if you are enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and don't forget to drop me a comment down below. Which Legion or Chaos Warband have you painted your Chaos Terminators in? I'd love to see them. There'll be a link on my Facebook community group for my Discord if you'd like to share them there. Can't wait to see how you've painted your Terminators. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need for your entire hobby journey. Models, paints, gaming equipment, decorative artwork for creating a unique gaming area, and collector items such as pin badges and coins. They stock quite a lot of different stuff as well. They also have Combat Patrol magazine and other past part works from Hachette. So don't forget to check them out on their store. There's a link in the video description. And of course, they've got their physical store you can always head down to if you're local. Right, let's head to the table. We'll paint our aspiring champion in the colours of Black Legion. Hello, welcome back to issue 40 of Combat Patrol. I will mention there might be some noise in the background. That's because it is currently really hot here in the UK. I'm on issue 40 and I think it's like close to 30 degrees, if not over 30 degrees currently. So yeah, kind of hot for us in Brits here, but I'm going to try and push through and get this issue finished. So we have our Terminators. Whoop. Got 4 of them finished and battle ready. This guy hasn't got his arm fully glued on yet, it's just blue tacked in. Just like the Assault Cannon Terminator, so I can get all the detail when we come to the highlighting. Yeah, they are all looking cool. I have gone a little different to how the magazine suggested for each particular one. But yeah, all in all, I really do like these models. And we're here to turn our focus, of course, to our champion. So we'll adjust the camera, we'll take a look through the paint guide, seeing how it's implemented, and then we'll put it into action on our champion model. So right, into the magazine we go. We can go past our build guides, and here we are, how to paint our Chaos Terminators. Follow this guide to paint your unit of Chaos Terminators. If you have recently finished building the models, make sure they are fully dry. Then gather your paints and brushes and set up your paint station in the well-lit area, and make sure you take plenty of breaks as you work your way through this guide. So there's an idea to paint these guys all together if possible, but as you know, I'm here just to paint the champion. But it's a pretty similar guide to our, well, other Black Legion models. So I'm going to start off with a base coat of Abaddon Black. So once you get your 3 layers down, we can move to working on our metallics. So picking out all our silver and then all of our gold. So we're picking out all these little pistons and cable pieces, which is a nice little different touch to the regular Terminators, the Space Marines. We're then picking out all the gold trim and the details on the bolters for those with bolters. And once we've changed our water, we can move on to our other details. So picking out red for any loincloths, the eyes, the grip on the champion's sword, and we're picking out a Blood Angel helmet here, which I've already done on one guy, so I might I've got a totally different helmet on my champion, so I'm going to do that different colour. I've done my Primaris one blued for the Ultramarines. There. After that, moving on to Catch and Flesh. This is going to be for the furs on some of the models, and also for the trophy rack wooden spikes, and any string holding up skulls and trophies. Personally though, I would do this step second, so paint your skull first and then go in with a thin tipped brush and pick out the brown afterwards. Speaking of skulls, we're moving over to Wraithbone for any flesh like our champion here, as well as any skulls and bones decorated around our models. And if you've got any helmets of tusks, don't forget to pick those out as well. And with all other Chaos Marine models, there's lots of little teeth and bits around the models to pick out. When it comes to picking out the helmets, you can do these in any colours you want. If you're using just the colours in the collection, you're kind of limited to the colours. But the magazine shows to do a Imperial Fist, a Ultramarine, a Blood Angel as you've previously seen, and they even leave the champion's helmet silver. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to be painting that as later. Then we're on to our shade stage, so all of our silver metal detail, our red, our brown is going to be done with Nuln Oil. All our tusks and bones are going to be done with Agrax Earthshade. And finally, Reichland Flesh Shade for all that gold trim, yellow helmet there if you've done a yellow helmet, and of course the champion's head there. Interestingly, we haven't painted the insides of these horns. Maybe in a future issue we'll come back to adding some extra details. And there we have our unit up to this completed stage. So we'll bring our paint disc in and we can get on and paint our aspiring champion. So here we have our aspiring champion undercoated in Abaddon Black. And our first detail to do, as the magazine suggests, is Lead Belcher. So this is going to be for all of our silver details. We've got quite a few on the champion. He's got the pipes around his mouth, tops of these trophy rack spikes, he's bolter, and he's a cursed sword. So we'll start things off with our medium base brush so we can cover the larger areas. But I have got my small layer on standby for when we get around to the back and pick out those smaller details. So once we're not too overloaded, we can go on to our model and pretty much pick out the entirety of the bolt gun, including the ammo, and then get the handle in his hand. So we've got his sword, just picking out the blade. And we'll paint the star detail in gold. We've got the spike on the back of the hilt, which we're picking out in silver as well. Other areas to look for are areas of chainmail, like on his shoulder pads here. And there's a little bit underneath his chest armor and underneath his loincloth as well. And there's a chain holding his skull on, don't forget to get that as well. We can shift over to our smaller brush now for all the harder to reach details. So we'll start with the pipes on his face mask here. We got all these spikes at the top of the trophy racks. And like the guide, we'll paint that silver helmet in as well. Finally, around the back then, we got the vents of his armor. And all these smaller pistons dotted around the armor. There we go, 2 layers of silver down onto our aspiring champion, and he's starting to look pretty good. So up next then, it's time to tackle all of that gold trim. So onto good old Retributor armor here. And just like before, I've got my medium base brush here and my small layer brush just for added control when it comes to certain areas, like the details on the gun casing and the hilt of the sword. So I'll get this colour prepared on our palette. And we'll need to be prepared to do 2, maybe even 3 layers, especially on the black. So we got his chest area here, plus the skull. Don't forget to get the details that go down the side of the chest armour and the ends of these pipes here. As with our previous Chaos models, I'm not worrying about being too neat. I can do a tidy up stage later on before we hit those washes. I need to get the entirety of the bottom of the trophy rack in gold. This is where you might need your smaller brush for the inside areas. And it's harder to reach. But just take your time going around the entirety of the model, getting all the trim and the details on the weapons. There we go. All of our metallics are done, our gold trim and all our silver detail. We even tidied up the areas of silver, well, except there, that I'd made a mistake, but that'll be corrected later on. It's not too bad, and probably not very noticeable either. Right, enough rambling, moving on to our next colour. So Mephiston Red is the colour for the loincloths, and if you're building your Terminators with the helms, don't forget to pick out their eyes. So I've got fresh water and a fresh sheet in my wet palette, as mine was full. So we'll thin out some paint. And on this guy, we haven't got too much to do. We've just got his loincloth. Being careful around that silver. And then we have got the weapon grip that we can see at the end of his sword. There we go, loincloth done, as well as his sword grip. Now it's on to our catch and flesh for all of our furs and the spikes of the trophy rack. So you'll have quite a few random placements of furs. There's some on the shoulder pads, some sort of almost blended into the armor, but it's an attachment to the armor. There's one on this guy that I'll point out. And there's some on the other models as well to pick out, so be careful. So we've got this piece here that's attached to the armor, but it sort of blends in there at the knee joint. So just be careful when painting around our finished gold. We've got a bit of cloth on the underside here, or a bit of furs even on the underside of his loincloth. And of course we've got the shafts of the trophy rack here to be picked out as wood. Just be careful around any areas you've finished. So there we go, calagen flesh has now been applied. So we've got the furs and those wooden spikes. And onto our final colour before I tidy up. And that is Wraithbone. So this is going to be for all the skulls. Any exposed flesh, which is only on our aspiring champion. And again, any tusks on your helmets for your other Terminators. And of course, those teeth and growths that appear on the armour. And as usual, these will vary model to model. So just take a good look round. Maybe use a magnifying glass. Or check the references at the end of the paint guide. So first off, we've got a skull here to pick out on his waist. Some poor guardsman that he defeated in a Black Crusade, most likely. We've got his bare flesh to pick out, being careful around that face mask. But if we make a mistake, we're going to tidy up with black in a minute anyway. We're going to need a couple of layers over the black base coat. We've got the skull here on the sword, which is need to be picked out in bone. A couple of teeth here on this shoulder pad. And there's some on this hip guard here. Just take your time checking around the model, making sure you've got them all. And of course there's the skulls on the trophy rack to pick out as well. There we go, all that Wraithbone detail is picked out now. And he's ready for the tidy up, so I'm off to give him a quick touch up with Abaddon Black, and I'll be back for the wash stage. There we go, our aspiring champion is tidied up, and now we can begin to add those final details in the form of shades. And our first one is Nuln Oil, so this is going to be for the red, the brown, and those silver details. And for the guns, we're actually wanting to give a second coat, just to give that sort of aged, warped, millennia sort of effect. They've been in the warp for some time and the weapons are old and ancient. So it sort of shows that they're from a different time by giving that extra grimy coat of the Nuln Oil. So I've got my shade brush loaded up, not too overloaded. And we can start on our model. So we'll pick out the sword. Or the blade at least of the sword. We've got our storm bolter here, or combi bolter, as they are the older patterns of the gun. We've got our silver helmet, silver and brown details on the trophy rack to pick out. And of course, we've got all the loincloth detail, both sides, to pick out as well. While I'm waiting for that first layer of Nuln Oil to dry, we can move over to our second shade, which is Agrax Earth Shade. This is going to be for all our skulls and bone detail. So as a fairly small, I'm going to use my small layer brush for added control. So I just want to pick out our skulls. And don't forget the teeth. So with our shades all dried, we're ready for the final shade, and that is going to be, you guessed it, right, flesh shade for all of that gold detail, and of course his head. So give this a good shake, grab our shade brush, we can apply the final colour to our aspiring champion for our Terminator squad. So make sure the brush isn't too overloaded as usual. Onto our model, so we'll paint his head and then start work on all that gold detail. And like before, you don't need to worry too much about this going on the black, as once it dries it won't really be visible. Just be careful around any bone detail, you don't want to taint that, same for any silver. When it comes to the details on the gun, you'll want to move over to a smaller brush just for added control, so we only touch the raised trim with this colour. And there we go, squad is complete with our newly painted aspiring champion, and man does he look imposing. Ready to lead his squad in the eternal war against the Imperium of Man. So there we go, that's issue 40's paint guide put into practice on the aspiring champion, and yeah, it's a nice easy colour scheme, much like the previous Black Legion models. It's not too hard once you get into the flow of things. The most daunting thing, as usual, is that gold trim, but just take your time, use a small brush if needed, and definitely 2 to 3 layers, especially over the black. If I had my way, I'd be base coating the entire models with gold via the form of a gold spray, and then picking out all the black using thin layers of contrast paint. But yeah, that's how I prefer to do things rather than how the magazine shows. But I made a promise at the start of this series to always do what the magazine says, and that's what I'll do. Although I am probably thinking when we reach that Boom Dacker Snaz wagon, as well as some of the bigger models later on in the collection, I'm gonna have to go into breaking my promise and using spray, because those models are going to take up quite a lot of paint otherwise. But yeah, for now I'm happy to keep following the magazine tutorial guides. It's a good way to improve both my painting and yours as well, don't forget. These are beginner guides, so yeah, they're very simple, and yeah, they teach you great brush control, especially with using painting that trim with the Retributor armor, as well as, of course, slowly giving you all of the important techniques. We'll be learning soon all about basing and dry brushing once we get to the paint issue in the next delivery. That's a couple of weeks yet away, so we'll have to put that on the pinboard. But there we have it. I think I've rambled on long enough and taken up quite a bit of time with this video. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Up next then, we've got our naming article, a new combat patrol mission, and we have a scenario to try these guys out in. So all what's left for me to do is to say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.